The global pandemic has forced us to contend with serious supply chain disruptions, leading to higher prices and a scarcity of goods. And one of the factors impacting the supply chain is an alarming labor shortage. A record 4.3 million Americans, that's nearly 3% of the U.S. workforce, quit their jobs in August.
Yeah, and we are joined now by Secretary Elaine Chao, who has held not one but two cabinet positions. She served as Secretary of Labor for President George W. Bush and Secretary of Transportation during the Trump administration. So we are talking to the right person here. Secretary Chao, thank you for being with us. We are seeing help wanted signs everywhere. How much of our supply chain issues that we've been talking a lot about affecting millions of people, how much can that be attributed to people not going back to work?
Well, it's a big reason. Of course, the lack of raw materials, the lack of supplies, the lack of key components like the chip situation, all that exacerbates the supply chain situation. But labor shortages are a major factor because there are no workers, there are not enough workers to make the things that people want, therefore leading to a shortage of products. And then, of course, in services as well, there are not enough workers who want to provide services. And so restaurants can't open the long hours that they want to. Stores can't keep the hours that they would like to. Some of the 24/7 support that is needed for logistics, moving logistics can't occur because of the lack of workers.
Well,
so it's a big deal.
Secretary Chao,
and basically,
yeah. Well, my question, what are we supposed to do to get folks back into the workforce? You even appeal to their patriotism to a certain degree to say, hey, we got to get this economy up and going. But how do you get them back? And can government do anything to encourage them to go back?
Well, I think the workers have to feel a sense of safety, and a sense of security. So they need to feel that the workplace is safe. So the employers have a lot of responsibility to give their employees that kind of feeling. But secondly, the government shouldn't really compete with the private sector in terms of compensation. Workers are making a very rational decision if indeed they can get more pay from the government than they can from their private sector employer. So what we need for this economy to recover is for workers to come back to work. And I think the government can take a look at some of the regulations that they have on the books that are discouraging workers to come back. They can be taking a look at how there's a shortage of truckers and there's a shortage of various types of transportation workers all across the sector. And there's sometimes regulations that are hampering the return of workers as well. So I think the government can be looking at that.
Secretary Chao, there is currently, as you know, a bipartisan bill awaiting a vote on the House floor. Do you support the bill, the infrastructure bill? And in your experience, what aspects of our country's infrastructure most need improvement right now? And how can that help the overall picture that we're dealing with on an economic level?
I think that an infrastructure bill can pass even today, but it's being held hostage to the $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation bill. And so that is a big fight among the Democrats. Some of them, again, want much more spending. The moderates would prefer a more modest package. And so these two bills are now linked to one another, and the infrastructure bill is held hostage. But I would say that the infrastructure bill, if it comprises of transportation infrastructure, is extremely popular. Most people want to see their roads and bridges improve, and their transit systems as well. And that bill can go on its own. So hopefully it will not be held hostage much longer.
I think that's great to hear. You're still rooting for transportation as the former Secretary of Transportation.
I certainly am.
I do want to ask you about your time as Secretary of Labor, though. When you served with President Bush, you served in that cabinet, of course, with former Secretary of State Colin Powell.
Yes.
I had to ask you your reaction to his passing this week after complications of COVID, and also just what kind of stands out to you about your time with him?
General Powell is a real patriot. He was a first in so many ways. He was an example to our country about racial harmony, about achievement. He himself has led an exemplary life of just inspiration and accomplishments for all of us to remember. My heart and my thoughts and prayers go out to his beloved Elma. They've been together for over 57 years, and also his wonderful family during this devastating time for them and for the nation.
Well, his legacy lives on, and I'm sure his family is heartened by your kind words. Secretary Elaine Chao, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.